Watching the first episode of BigFatAstroVlog. I'm Patrick Watson, I'm an astrologer, and I am probably not wearing pants. Today, I need to address a very serious problem. We have an epidemic on our hands affecting our youth, as young as 3 years old. And I am ashamed to admit that it has even infiltrated my household.
Cash it side, how about that?
Aw, aren't they cute? I mean, they just do everything together and their little voices are just so... Back to the topic at hand. I'd like to talk about a hot piece of astro. A news story, which is a cool example of astrology in action. Now, if you've been on the internet in the past month, you may have seen this meme floating around. I was thoroughly confused about it until I googled the phrase, found a video on YouTube, and as soon as I saw Dr. Phil in the title, I knew it would not disappoint.
Ain't nobody gonna catch me.
Because you're too streetwise?
Yup. And all these hoes laughing like something funny.
She's talking about the audience that they're laughing at her.
Did you say the hoes are laughing?
Yep.
So the audience are a bunch of hoes?
Yep. Catch me outside. How about that?
Huh?
Catch me outside. How about that?
Catch you outside? What does that mean?
What I just said.
Catch me outside, how about that? The catchphrase became popular in January 2016 from an appearance by the troubled teen Daniel Bregoli on Dr. Phil. Daniel was born on February 22nd, 2003 in Boynton Beach, Florida. Notice the kind of unfortunate Mars-Pluto conjunction in Sagittarius opposite Saturn and Gemini that she has in her natal chart. This is an empowered and hardened Mars. It looks like quite a temper, kind of like the person who is so out of control you'd resort to a celebrity psychiatrist for help. Now, Daniel went on Dr. Phil on September 14th, 2016, approximately at her Mars return. So on this day, she was really in tune with her Mars, and what did she do? She called a whole studio audience hoes and challenged them all to fight her, to cash her outside. How about that? The video didn't become viral until January 2016. The first viral posting of the meme occurred on January 5th, 2017, according to knowyourmeme.com. Where was Saturn? 21 Sagittarius, opposite her Saturn, and conjunct her Mars and Pluto. When she did the taping of the show, Mars was at 21 Sagittarius, and when it became a viral meme, Saturn was at 21 Sagittarius. Now, this Saturn transit isn't a particularly pleasant transit to have, and we have to remember that while this meme is hilarious for us, it probably hasn't been hilarious for her. She's become this subject of mockery all over the world. And that's Saturn. Now, granted, it hasn't all been bad for her. The Jupiter-Uranus opposition is squaring her Venus, and she seems to be trying to use the unexpected publicity to her advantage by selling various merchandise with her catchphrase on it. Don't you just have to have a blanket with "Cash me outside, how about that" on it? Capitalism. Well, good for her. Cash you later, Danielle. How about that? Sometimes when I read the news, I get struck by the suspicion that there's an interesting astrological story to be told. It kind of smells. It smells like astro. This might sound a bit weird, but Donald Trump uses an astrologer, a bad astrologer, and his name is Steve Bannon. Yes, that Steve Bannon. Actual white supremacist and literal admirer of Nazis and Satan and chief strategist to the president and on the national security team. So when it comes to shady as fuck advisors on a scale of Dick Cheney to Grimer Wormtongue, he scores somewhere in between Goebbels and that Muppet that lives in Jabba the Hutt's folds. So, how is he an astrologer? Well, he's not quite an astrologer as we understand it. He subscribes to the fourth turning theory, a generational theory developed by social historians William Strauss and Neil Howe. Basically, it recognizes a fairly consistent 84-year pattern across US history and generations, demarcating generational groups and historic crises and awakenings, all of which would be alarming to everyone except to astrologers who automatically know that this is really about the 84-year cycle of Uranus. Like, da. So what's the deal? Bannon believes we're reaching the fourth turning now, and that the current global resurgence of hard right-wing politics is how the United States will redefine itself, violently if necessary. The past three turnings involved major American wars. World War II, the Civil War, and the Revolutionary War. So he thinks war is going to happen soon, and he wants to bring it about. It's just me, but maybe it's not the best thing to have someone who believes in an inevitable war to have a big role in potentially hastening it. Now, why do I say he's a bad astrologer? He thinks the fourth turning's happening now, whereas anyone with an ephemeris can see that he's about 8 years too early. The Revolutionary War, Civil War, and American involvement in World War II took place while Uranus was in Gemini. Uranus doesn't enter Gemini until 2025. Presuming Trump stays in the White House for a second term, he wouldn't be in the office at the time Uranus enters Gemini, and presumably wouldn't be in a position to affect what happens in that time. However, weirdly enough, Donald Trump was born with the Sun conjunct Uranus in Gemini, so who knows what to expect once he experiences his Uranus return. Even though Bannon's timing appears to be off, he's not completely wrong. The Uranus returns in Gemini have featured the United States redefining itself violently. Gemini is the sign of the twins, and what I think is kind of interesting about this is that when Uranus has been in Gemini, the idea of twins has come up in strange ways. For example, the United States broke off from the British Empire, and are we not twins in a sense, in our special relationship? The American Civil War was described as being brother against brother. Isn't that basically like the sign of Gemini? The end of World War II led to the Cold War, the US and Russia embodying the opposites of capitalism and communism. When Uranus returns to Gemini, I'm sure we'll see this twin thing come up again. But how is the question? Will it be against an external threat as it was for the Revolutionary War and World War II? Or will it be because of internal divisions like the American Civil War? That smells like Astro. Now, I love astrology, but every so often you come across things that don't make a whole lot of sense. Sometimes they're a real pain in the ass, Astro. Today I'd like to bring to attention the aspect pattern called the Yod. Here's how the astrology dictionary defines a Yod. A Yod is a planetary pattern that occurs when two planets form a close sextile with each other in a chart, and then both planets also simultaneously form a quincunx aspect with a third planet. For example, if the Sun was at 15 Aries and it was sextile to Saturn at 15 Gemini, and then both planets will also quincunx the Moon at 15 Scorpio, this would be an exact Yod. Planet opposite the midpoint of two planets in a sextile doesn't sound that amazing. How it gets these nicknames, the finger of God, finger of destiny, is a fateful aspect. Isn't any aspect more or less fated? I have three main problems with the Yod. My first problem is that midpoints are already kind of abstract. I would tend to only consider conjunctions to a midpoint as opposed to transiting oppositions. It just seems like it's that much further from the point. My second point is that sextiles are kind of weak aspects. Is there no love for the planet opposite the midpoint of two squaring planets? A grand trine technically features planets opposing the midpoints of the two other planets it trines. T-squares feature planets conjunct and opposing the midpoint of two opposing planets, so surely these are bigger deals than the finger of God. Maybe there are other body parts. The spleen of God. The weenus of God. Instead, two quintiling planets biquintiling a third planet is known as a golden Yod, so perhaps they're different metals, or from different gods. The iron nuts of God, the silver rod Yod of God. And my third point, this is a little controversial, I don't really think that quincunxes are aspects properly. At least most of the time. They're not based on a whole number division of the circle. The opposition is based on 2, the trine is based on 3, the square is based on 4, the quincunx is based on a division by 2.4. What's the esoteric meaning of 2.4? Technically, the only kind of opposing aversion relationship that can exist between two signs are signs which are ruled by the same planet. For example, Libra and Taurus are both ruled by Venus, Aries and Scorpio are both ruled by Mars, although the affinity is by sign rather than by degree. So, if you have one planet in Aries and another one in Scorpio, they already have some sort of mitigation of that quincunx relationship, that sort of blind spot, by virtue of the fact that they're both ruled by Mars. And then the other kind of mitigation of an aversion that can exist is between signs which are antitia or contra-antitia to each other. So that's signs like Libra and Pisces, or Aries and Virgo, although in that case they actually have to be related by those contra-antitia or antitia relationships. For example, a planet at 3 Aries versus another planet at 27 Virgo. Those have to be in an antecedent relationship for it to really count. So technically, the only true Yod that can really exist would be one where two planets are sextile each other at 15 degrees Taurus and Pisces, with a planet at 15 Libra opposing their midpoint. But even then, just why? If you haven't had a good cringe today, check out the Wikipedia page for Yod. And I quote, Adolf Hitler had a golden Yod, for example. And it could be said he misused his creativity, and that his purported artistic ability was ignored or underappreciated by his examiners at art school, and so he channeled his extraordinary cleverness into other venues that were ultimately destructive rather than creative. It couldn't be that his ascendant ruler was Venus retrograde conjunct Mars in the 8th house of death, leading to a messed up Venusian desire to beautify and purify the world through terribly violent means. No, it couldn't be that at all. It's his golden Yod. The finger of God is a pain in my astro. Now, I got something right up your street. I talked a bit about Uranus and Gemini in this episode. If you want to read more about Uranus and Gemini and American history, you need to read Nick Dagan-Best's book, Uranus USA. Buy the book, you won't regret it. It's very colorful and it's got lots of pictures and doom. It's wonderful. Another thing that's right up your astro is astrologer Chris Brennan has just dropped a book that he's been working on for about a decade, and it's worth the wait. It's called Hellenistic Astrology, the Study of Fate and Fortune. I've actually gotten a chance to preview this book, and I'm going to do a full review soon, but I can tell you without a doubt that this is a book every serious astrologer must own. I'm positive this will more or less be a staple in the book collection of astrologers in the future. It covers the fascinating history of Hellenistic astrology, the philosophy and theory underlying many astrological concepts which are now taken for granted, and best of all, it has in-depth explanations and examples of Hellenistic astrological concepts that you can start applying to charts immediately. I can't understate how significant of a book this is for you to own. Pay the $48, buy it through the Amazon link I posted in the video description so we can bump him up on the bestseller list. You'll be a better astrologer if you'll read it. You'll lose 10 pounds. It's great. It's marvelous. It's amazing. It's huge. So I think you'll find these books are right up your astro. If you liked this video, please give it a like. And you should subscribe to my channel. I'm Patrick Watson, and I am not wearing pants.